What's going on, everyone? DSP here, and it is a very, very, very humid day here in Connecticut, which is why my hair is so foofy right now. It's really just like poofed out, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to bother trying to water it down or gel it down for this video. I'm just going to let it be as it is. So anyway, welcome to the Hateful Truth, and we're going to talk today about a game that a lot of people highly anticipated me playing. I was interested in it. A lot of people loved my demo gameplay of this game, and then when the game finally came out, it kind of like exploded. My playthrough has gotten a lot of views, and usually games like this don't get these kind of views, especially if it's not like a game that comes out in that last rush, that last quarter of the year where all the big blockbuster hits come out. But I think this one kind of snuck under the radar, but is actually now being recognized as interesting of a game that it was. And it definitely lent itself well to a playthrough, even though some people thought that it wouldn't initially with the kind of gameplay that this game has. But oof, it's a quirky game, it's a unique game, it's a very, very Japanese culture-oriented game, but at the same time, it actually seems to adapt well to an American audience. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about yet, now you're going to find out. I'm of course talking about the puzzle, suspense, thriller, anime, horror game, Catherine. It's very hard to categorize Catherine as one particular thing, okay? And the reason is, it really is like many different games in one. You've got, on the one hand, a story that's maybe similar to something like, say, Heavy Rain or Indigo Prophecy, where there's a mystery going on about men disappearing, and possibly it has to do because they're all cheaters. They all have cheated on their women, and they're dying in their sleep, these men. And so the big mystery is, what's really going on with these men? How are they all dying in their sleep? It's like inexplicable. And the story is about Vincent, a man who has been in a long-term relationship with his girlfriend Catherine for quite some time. He's 32 years old. I believe she's in her 30s as well. And now finally the relationship is getting more serious, to the point where Catherine's really thinking about settling down, and Vincent wasn't ready for that. So that's where the story starts. Now, at the very beginning of the story, Vincent ends up running into Catherine, who's a completely different woman, who is 10 years younger than him, and somehow they end up having a fling. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the story and what happens, but I do have to explain one quick thing so that we can explain the gameplay. Basically, after he has his fling with Catherine, he starts having nightmares. And during these nightmares, Vincent is joined in this somewhat like dream place by people who look like giant sheep. And what he finds out is that he's actually with other people all stuck in this dream, and basically their lives are at risk. What happens is, you go to the gameplay of the game, and the puzzle aspect of the game is that you have to climb a giant stack of blocks, a tower of blocks, okay? And you have many different abilities. You can pull the blocks, you can push the blocks, you can use special blocks. Some blocks make you slide, some blocks bring you up, way higher. There's a bunch of different things that happen in the game, or with the puzzle gameplay, that make it a little bit more than just a standard puzzle game, which you probably get bored of if you were going to play an entire playthrough of a game like this, of same repetitive puzzles. And the gameplay gets varied over the course of the game. Sometimes they throw in other people on the blocks with you, trying to throw you off, which you can then knock them off and things like that. Later on, items come into play, so maybe you'll have a block that you've stored, and if you really can't figure out the normal way to solve the puzzle, you can just throw the block down and use it as a stepping stone to the next block to advance more quickly. The goal of these stages is to get to the top of this stack of blocks before time runs out. Now, when I say that, I mean, on each stage, what's happening is, as a certain amount of time passes, the bottom row of blocks actually breaks off of the stack and falls into oblivion. Now, you can die if you fall off of the tower yourself. Like, let's say you're hanging from a block and you accidentally let go and there's nothing to land on. You could die. And then also, if you're on that bottom row of blocks and it gives way, you die. Now, the way that it works is you have a certain number of tries when the game starts, and if you will find additional lives, which are actually now pillows that you find in these puzzles, and those will give you additional retries. But there are checkpoints along the way as well, so you don't feel like you have to beat every single puzzle from start to finish in order to complete it. You will be able to have checkpoints and restart if you do die in between. The bottom line is, if you run out of lives, the game is over. So you're going to want to save frequently whenever you have a chance to do so. So that's the puzzle aspect of the game. But then there's the whole other side of the game, which has to do with anime cutscenes, which basically flesh out the story of this big mystery of what's going on with this mysterious girl who he ran into and slept with. Is he going to end up going with his long-term girlfriend? Is he going to tell her that he cheated on her, or is he going to keep going with the younger girl? What's really going on? What are these dreams, really? And it's a really interesting, suspenseful thriller story with a horror twist. And also, it is actually a lot about relationships and how men should act as they're becoming adults and become more mature, and becoming more mature and being able to take on more responsibility and commitment with someone who you've been with for a long time. So in a surprising way, the game actually tackles some really serious issues. So it's a pretty interesting plot. Now, the other portion of the gameplay are based off of when you're not in the dream. So if you're not in the dream, you're outside and you're hanging out with your friends sometimes. Maybe you're on a date. Maybe you're doing different things. And primarily, most of the gameplay outside of the puzzles aspect happens inside of your local bar. And when you're in the bar, you can do many different things. You can talk to people in the bar, and what you'll actually find out is by talking to people in the bar, you can actually alter the course of the game in certain ways, but I don't want to spoil too much, so I won't say that. But it can also change what happens. Like, for example, if you spend enough time in the bar, maybe Catherine will show up, and then you'll hang out and have a new scene with her that you wouldn't have had if you didn't spend a lot of time in the bar. Primarily, the reason for the bar is to flesh out story aspects of the game. If you don't ever talk to anyone in the bar, you may get really confused about what's going on in the story, so you're definitely going to want to do it. Now, in addition to just talking to people, there is a arcade machine there, which is actually called Rapunzel, and what you're going to find is that it's basically an emulated version of the nightmares that you're having. So it's another puzzle part of the game that plays almost identically to what you've been doing in the dream world, and so you have an opportunity to practice, and when you actually do things with Rapunzel, it can actually affect the plot and also unlock certain things. So that might be a cool thing for you to do as well. In addition to that, you can drink, and if you drink, what happens is the more you drink, you actually move faster when you're in the dream world every night. So you're going to want to have a couple of drinks every time that you're at the bar, and along the way you get some pretty cool alcohol trivia as well from the game. It gives you some interesting tidbits of information about the drinks that you're drinking. The last thing that really happens in the bar is you can check your cell phone. Now, you can do several things with your cell phone. You can save your game, which you're going to want to do frequently. You can interact with people, for example, your long-term girlfriend Catherine and the new fling Catherine. You can text back and forth to them. And depending on answers that you give people who ask you questions in the game, the way that you word your texts to the two girls, and also in between nightmare stages, there's opportunities to answer certain moral questions. And depending on how you answer all these different things in the game, it actually has a morality meter that either goes to you're very moral, you're very good, or you're very immoral, you're very bad, you want to be free from responsibility. And depending on the answers you give during the game and where the meter is at the end of the game, it actually affects the ending that you get. Now, there's actually 8 different endings to this game, including if you have maximum good or maximum bad, you actually get an additional cutscene at the end of the game. When I was playing the game, I actually did the maximum bad, and I can tell you from my experience, that was probably the best ending I've seen in a long time for any game. I thought it was hilarious, but I thought it was fun and rewarding. So, my recommendation is if you do it, go for an ending. Don't answer just morally or however you think you would actually answer the questions. It's a little bit more interesting to try to go for the extremes and see what endings you would get, and then maybe mix it up in the middle and see what other endings you would get now. So that's the game in a nutshell, okay? Now, my feelings about the game, because this is, after all, a review. It's not just me explaining the game to you. I think that the cutscenes, I think that the parts in the bar, I think that the overall arcing story and the mystery aspect of the game, wondering what's going on, what are these dreams that people are having, how are men dying overnight, I think it's very interesting. And at first, I kind of did think I might get turned off, and it might be a little bit too Japanese-centric, especially because it is an Atlas game, and they make games like Persona, and those are very Japanese-oriented. They're heavily into Japanese culture and things like that. This wasn't that bad. This was actually pretty Americanized to the point where I understood most of the stuff that was going on in the game, if not all of it. They never bombard you with so much anime or cutscenes of anime that you're like, oh, can I get back to the gameplay? It's broken up pretty well. Now, the way that the stages work, the puzzle stages, because I forgot to mention this, I apologize, is that when you go to sleep at night, you go to a different stage in the game. So let's say in stage 2 there might be 3 separate puzzles, and then once you complete the first 2 and you get to the last puzzle, you actually fight a boss. Now the bosses are pretty unique because every boss is some kind of a monster or some kind of an entity that's attacking you while you're trying to climb this tower. And just like a regular puzzle where the blocks are falling from the bottom after a certain amount of time, the bosses are actually chasing after you, trying to kill you. Some of them will stab you, some of them will use special abilities to destroy certain blocks and actually mess you up in the middle of trying to climb the puzzle. So it's really unique, and every single boss is pretty unique. How many puzzles are there? Well, if I remember correctly, I think there are 9 stages. Some of the stages have like 5 puzzles, some have 4, some have 3, and a couple have 2 or 1. I believe that overall there were over 15 puzzles in the game. There's probably more than that now that I'm thinking about it. And how long did it take me to beat this game? Well, let me put it to you this way. The game has 3 selectable difficulty levels and then a hidden difficulty level, very easy, which you don't even know about. I don't know how to do it exactly because I didn't do it, but what someone told me was, I think if you're on the difficulty select screen, you hold down select, all of a sudden it'll appear above easy, which is good. And the reason I say that is, unlike 99% of the games that come out today, the normal difficulty on Catherine is fucking gruelingly hard. It is. The average gamer who's not into puzzle games like this or doesn't play this kind of game all the time will not want to play this game on normal. So I'm glad that they actually gave it 2 other difficulty levels under normal to mess around with, because even the easy difficulty can be challenging at times. It's not super difficult, it's not anything you're going to spend hours stuck on one puzzle, oh, how do I solve it? But even the easy one can take a significant amount of time to beat. So I was a little frustrated because I wanted to challenge myself. I said, you know what, I'm going to start on normal anyway. And I kind of said, man, this could be a big mistake. I could end up regretting doing this. Well, I got up to about almost completely through stage 6, and there's 9 total stages, and I got this puzzle 6-3. There was one part of this puzzle I spent over 30 minutes on and could not fucking figure out how to do it. And I said, you know what, I could cheat, and get past this, and I don't want to cheat. I want to play the game on its own merits, by its own merits, and not cheat, so that way when I give a review of it like I'm doing right now, I can be honest and fair and balanced about it. So I lowered the difficulty at that point to normal. To easy. And the good thing about the game is, whenever you beat a stage, you can, when you're in the bar, change the difficulty of the game. And so you have the ability on the fly, if you start it at a difficulty, and then you find it's too hard, you can go back to your last save, and you can actually change the difficulty, which is amazingly good. Thank you so much, Atlas, for letting us do that, because if it didn't, and you had to start the game over after getting to stage 6, if I had to start the game over on easy, I would have fucking thrown it like this and never played it again. So that was very good thinking on their part. Now, as I was saying, the game's fucking hard, okay? And to the point where if you're an average gamer, you will get fucking frustrated with this game. You absolutely will. Even on easy, there are some parts that are just really cheap. There's some boss fights where the first time you're fighting this boss, you would have no idea what the boss is about to do or how you can dodge that attack. And so when it happens and you die, you're like, fuck, that was like a beginner's trap. There was no way you would have known what you had to do in that situation. Then after a while, you learn what to do, and then you can pass it on. So even on easy, you're going to find sometimes it might be a little bit frustrating, okay? I would say that people who love puzzle games, people who play puzzle games all the time will probably adore this game. But for other people who aren't into puzzle games, it might be a hard sell if you're not into an interesting story with anime and Japanese culture infused into it. So I could see different kinds of people from different walks of life trying out this game. You have the hardcore puzzler who'll probably play this game on normal difficulty or even want to really challenge themselves and put it on hardcore. They're really going to enjoy the game. I could see fans of anime are probably going to love this game and play it on either easy or very easy. I could see the average gamer who really may not be a fan in particular of either one of those things might still enjoy this game because the story's good. Like I said, multiple interesting endings. The gameplay, even though it could get repetitive because every single puzzle is pretty much the same kind of premise, the game's still fun, okay? The only places that the game really go wrong, there's a couple. I'd say the first thing is that it is really odd that this game almost seems like two different games. It seems like there's one game that's a puzzle game, and then there's another game that wants to be like a suspense thriller like Heavy Rain was, with morality choices that are kind of similar to Mass Effect 2, and it really does. It seems like this game is schizophrenic. Like, it has two completely different personalities. And sometimes you may actually get frustrated and either like one more than the other and want to go back to the other, but yet have to share your time amongst the two, which could be frustrating if you only like one half or the other half of the game. To be completely honest, when I was playing this on normal, once it started to get really hard around Chapter 6, I was more like, God, I can't wait to just beat this puzzle and get back to the next stage so that I can have a half an hour to relax and go to the bar and talk to people and do different stuff, because these puzzles are really grueling right now and I need a break. And honestly, I did. There were points during these very difficult puzzles that were challenging me that I was just like, man, I need a fucking break. I can't keep playing right now. I need to walk away for 15 minutes over here and calm down and relax and just get my mind back so that I can get back to this next difficult puzzle. So the average person might find that the puzzles are frustrating in parts, and the fact that, you know, they can get so difficult at times, you may actually be just like dying for a respite, you know, between doing these puzzles. So I could see that that could be a negative for some people. I actually read a game review in Game Informer that said just that, because the guy who played it wasn't a fan of puzzle games, and he said, I really just wanted to get through the puzzles so I could get back to the bar, and for him that was a big negative for the game. For me, I enjoyed both sides of the game. I liked the puzzle aspect, and I liked the story and the anime and all the stuff that was going on with the morality choices on the other side. If anything, the one major gripe is that it is a very difficult game. But I'm glad that they have the easy and very easy selections there, so I can't really complain about that when they've made a way out. I also understand why this game is as hard as it is. It's because this game is really made to be for people who love hardcore puzzle games. That's what this game was made for. And so it's going to please those people. It's going to please hardcore puzzle fans. It's going to please casual puzzle fans. It's going to please people who like anime, people who like interesting stories. The only people who might not like this game are probably people who just really don't like puzzle games at all, or who are turned off by anime and Japanese culture. If that's the case, don't get this game, because there really is nothing else going on in this game. You're going to have to, you know, be bearing through whatever part of the game it is that you don't like, and you're probably not going to like the game overall. So even though during my playthrough I raged a couple times, and I told you on stage 6-3, I got fucking furious at the game and I wanted to smash my console, my controller. I did. I smashed my fucking controller down on my table, and I got marks all over it from when I smashed it down there. I forgive this game because it allows you to adjust the difficulty on the fly so that someone like me could still beat it, and there's a reason for it. Again, it wants to be, this game is so many things at once. You can be a hardcore puzzle player and love this game, and you can be a casual player and love this game. So they really did it well, okay? So overall, what do I think about the game? Well, before I do give my review, the one other thing that I would like to mention is that there is a mode called Coliseum where you can do versus co-op against a second player. Once you've beaten the game, this unlocks. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's on the same screen. Now you're two people going up at the same time, trying to pull blocks and try to get yourself up to the top of the tower. And you can attack each other, and you can do different things. Now, I didn't have an opportunity to try that out, and that was only because I don't know anyone else, you know, local to me who's beaten this game, and it would be very unfair for me to start playing a versus mode against someone who's never played the game, because there is a learning curve to this game that's needed. How long is the game overall? It took me about 14 hours, and I'm not exaggerating. It took me that long to beat the campaign of the game. And when you think about a puzzle game taking 14 hours, that's pretty damn good. This is probably one of the best puzzle games to come out, because they knew what they were doing. They said, we're not just going to make a pure puzzle game. We're going to give it a story. We're going to give it a background. We're going to give it anime cutscenes. We're going to give it this morality scale. It's really going to mix it up, and therefore, it's going to be a pretty interesting game for everyone who plays it, and it's not just going to be for hardcore puzzle fans. So I think this game does appeal to a wide margin, and again, the only people who really won't like it are people who hate puzzles or who dislike anime, and I'm not either of those people. So for me, overall, for a $60 game, I think that the story itself was worth the purchase price. I think the story was good enough, and the fact that it has 8 different endings, you may want to replay the game on easy or very easy, to get some of the other endings, or you could just jump on YouTube and see them. I didn't do that, but I also don't have a lot of time to go through another 14-hour game. So unfortunately for me, that's probably off the table, but for someone else who bought this game, you might want to do multiple playthroughs, and therefore, there is replayability in the game, which is awesome. So, my overall score for the Hateful Truth game review of Catherine, you might be surprised, I'm going to give it an 8.25. Now remember, my scale is on 1 to 10, but I am very honest with my reviews. I don't give games above, say, a 7 unless I really feel that they're exceptional in some way. I don't give average games anything higher than, say, a 5 or a 6. So this game, I am actually giving it some pretty high praise. I think that for what they did, for the package that they put together, this was a really fun game. The fact that they knew that the common gamer like me was going to be super challenged by the normal mode, that they would put in 2 other adjustable difficulties to help someone like me out, that's well appreciated. By the way, you get the achievements and you get the trophies anyway, even if you beat it on a different difficulty, so it's not like you get robbed because you downgraded the difficulty of the game. And I really enjoyed the story. My ending, like I said, I feel I probably got the best ending for me anyway in the entire game. And there's replayability, there's co-op once you beat the game. What more could you ask for in a puzzle game? I mean, this is pretty crazy. And of course, the graphics, let me mention that before we wrap up. The anime itself looks beautiful. The graphics are cel-shaded and amazing. Everything about this game is a pretty neat, tidy package. I really enjoyed Catherine. The one bummer, it has a giant install. It has actually a 2.5 gigabyte required install for this game. So you're going to need to free up some hard drive space if you want to play Catherine on the PS3. As opposed to the 360, which I didn't play it on. Of course, that doesn't have an install because the 360 doesn't install games unless you force them to. But I'm sure the 360 had a lot longer loading times as well. So that is it for Catherine. Hateful Truth review, my honest review, 8.25. I think that story-wise, it's one of the best games of the year. The only reason I can't give it a higher score, like an 8.5 or even a 9, is because the repetitiveness of the puzzle gameplay. Yes, they do throw in some things like items, variety blocks, enemies, but still at the same time, even by the end of the game, I was like, this is getting kind of boring and repetitive at this point. Thank God the game is over and I'm in like the final 2 stages of the game, but it is kind of repetitive near the end. If anything, the thing that keeps you going is the story and the cutscenes. That's what really keeps you going. What ending am I going to get? How's the story going to end? What's the resolution? So you will be willing to grind through those last handful of puzzles to get to the end of the game. It does kind of wear out its welcome just a little bit near the end with the amount of puzzles that they throw at you. But they really wanted to give you a gauntlet and make you really feel like, I earned this ending. You know what I mean? I went through so many puzzles. I went through hell and high water. I earned it. And at the end of the game, you do feel accomplished. You do feel really like you did something, like you've earned a good ending. And so that's why I give this game an 8.25. Could have been better if the puzzles weren't so repetitive, but that's my review. So, alright, that's it for the Hateful Truth on Catherine. I hope that you all now have a better picture of the game and you know what to expect if you want to try it. Comes with high praise from me, at least if you like puzzle games at all, or if you like this kind of quirky Japanese-style anime story that may have a suspense or thriller twist, you're going to like this game and I highly recommend it. So, that's it for the Hateful Truth. I'll see you guys next time.